We did our project on the impact of metro accessibility on residential property values, a spatial analysis of Washington, D.C. The problem that we were investigating is in Washington, D.C., there are large gaps in metro accessibility. In conjunction with this, there's not enough affordable housing in close proximity to metros. We know that metro accessibility is critical because it reduces a city's emissions and it connects residents to employment opportunities and daily necessities.
Our solution was to investigate where proximity to metro stations has the largest impact on residential housing prices, with the goal of providing insights to guide the development of new transit lines or stations to maximize economic and community benefits and really identify where having new stops or lines would have the biggest impact for the people living there. And we did this by downloading property values and neighborhood data. The property values were from the Redfin database, and the neighborhood data was from the US Census American Community Survey. And we constructed a hedonic pricing model to control for house and neighborhood characteristics and really isolate the impact of distance to metro. And the house characteristics were the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, the square footage, the lot size, the age of the home, and the type of home that it was. And the neighborhood characteristics were median income, poverty rate, educational attainment, and distance to parks. And once we had this, we ran a set of spatial functions to prepare the data for analysis. And some of these included the Euclidean distance tool, which actually calculated the distance to metros, and a spatial join, which joined the neighborhood characteristics to the property data based on the census tract that the properties were located within. And this allowed us to conduct our analysis. So once we had that, we executed an ordinary least squares regression of Moran's I to test for spatial autocorrelation and a geographically weighted regression to estimate the coefficients for the impact of metro proximity on residential property values. And we compared the results of the OLS and the GWR to show the benefits of considering spatial heterogeneity and spatial relationships in an analysis like this. And our code does produce an output for both the OLS and the GWR. However, to get the most accurate results, we would need to run multiple iterations and find what variables work the best, which we didn't have time to do, but that would be the next step of this project.
Now that you have a basic understanding of what we did and some of the functions that we used, we wanted to highlight a few sections of our code. So the first section we want to talk about is our use of the argpy function update cursor, which updates or deletes rows of attribute values from a feature class or table. So we did that using our CSV that had income, poverty, and education percent data. And so here you can see that we calculated our previously decimal value to a percent by timesing each of the rows by 100. We added a field called new object to one of our rows. And then finally, our metro miles field was actually in feet based on the projection system that we used. So we converted it in to miles using that simple calculation. The reason that we wanted to highlight this feature was we found that it was a real time saver because we didn't have to move back and forth from our Excel file into the Python environment. We could stay in the Python environment and just code out some of these things that we wanted to fix instead of having to do it manually.
And then one workaround that we used in our data was using model builder in ArcGIS and then exporting the code to be in our Python environment. And this was really helpful because it allowed us to create a replicable code while when the syntax wasn't working in ArcPy, and that was the syntax provided by Esri and the ArcGIS help page, and this function was just really helpful and allowed us to fully create this code.
Thank you for listening to our presentation.
Are you